broadcasting from an undisclosed location, from a secret hunting spot known only to him, and the guy who told him about it, and possibly the guy who told him. It's a show all about hunting in New Zealand and around the globe. This is The Hunting Show. Find The Hunting Show on Facebook and Twitter for up-to-date information on upcoming shows and topics.
That's right, this is The Hunting Show, and I'm Stephen Spargo, and I would like to say I am sitting here in a relatively cold New Zealand after being in a relatively warm Fiji for the last few days, and I'm feeling the burn, and that's about as far as I'm going to go with my Skype session today. But what I am going to talk about is this whole political thing. I had most people give me some good feedback about our interview with Peter Dunn, and others who said, why haven't I interviewed, the Labour Party leader, the National Party Prime Minister, bits and pieces like this. And I'd tell you that the opportunity's there. I'm not a member of United Future, nor is my political leanings that way, and anyone that wanted to find out my political leanings would not have to go very far at all to figure that out. But what I will say is I'm prepared to interview any political party leader from this upcoming election that wants to be interviewed. I suspect that hunters aren't on some of their radars, and Minister Dunn, I think, acknowledges that hunters and outdoors people are a significant part of the voting community, and was prepared to come on the show, where others maybe not so. Or maybe it is they haven't heard of the show, which is quite possible, to be honest. I'm not trying to say that they all know about what we do and who we are, but the offer is there. So all they have to do is get in contact with me. If you'd like them to get in contact with me, feel free to email them. I certainly have, giving them that offer, info@thehuntingshow.co.nz, and I'll be more than happy to interview as many of them as I can leading up to the election. And I'll probably start putting them, if I do get a decent response, I'm not sure if I will or not, I may start putting a bonus show together rather than actually have it on our regular show, because I am sure that you don't want this show dominated by politics for the next few weeks, particularly those overseas listeners. They may find New Zealand politics slightly boring. So let me see how we're going to do that, but the offer's definitely out there. I feel like I've made it. I feel like the show has finally hit its pinnacles when we got our first piece of hate mail. Yes. Stoked. And do you know what? I always love that hate mail has to be in caps, so their caps lock is stuck down, so effectively they're shouting at me down the screen. And the interesting thing was, it was about my interview with Cameron Slater. The feeling I got from the hate mail, because it was sent from an anonymous address, which tends to tell me that it was someone that was too scared to be named and shamed, but that they didn't actually listen to the show. The interview with Cameron Slater, and I encourage you to listen to it, and if you don't know who Cameron Slater is, he's from Whale Oil Hooked Beef blog, or the Whale Oil blog, and he's obviously been in the media quite a bit lately for his involvement with the National Party, or according to a certain book, his involvement with the political side of the National Party. And I just want to say, listen to the show. We didn't focus on politics. We talked to Cameron about his love of our sport, which is hunting. We certainly didn't focus on anything other than a brief mention of who he was and what he did or does. So please put that into the back of your mind. Have a listen to that if you haven't already, because it is actually a really interesting show. And what I really enjoyed about it is finding out what Cameron was passionate about with regards to the outdoors and getting youth outside, and how it's helped him with depression and all sorts of things. So please have a listen. Give it a chance. If you're not a big fan of Cameron, I know many of you probably aren't, this interview certainly sheds new light on the person that he is. And again, I'm not trying to say that Cameron's this or Cameron's that, and I'm certainly not going into bat for him, but the interview does shed new light on who he is. Today's interview is an interesting one. We've got co-editor of NZO, or NZ Outdoor Hunting Magazine, and it's David. How are you, David?
Yeah, very fine, thanks, Steve. Yeah, it's a beautiful day here in Tauranga, as usual.
Oh,
not
yeah.
rubbing it in or anything, but
and I'm sitting here in Taupo after getting back from Fiji, going, man, it's cold.
yes, you won't be enjoying that.
Now, David, tell me first of all a little bit about yourself.
Sure. In terms of my sort of career and how I got to be co-editor, most of my background is military, And I did 5 years with the New Zealand Infantry, and then I decided I needed a bit of a change, and I went over to Britain, and I spent 9 years in the British Parachute Regiment over there.
Gee.
And and it was a busy time to be a soldier, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I saw quite a lot of the world. I finished up my career over there because I was actually part of the British Army's freefall team, which is the Red Devils, and it's kind of a display skydiving team. They use it as a tool for recruiting, really. And I ended up breaking my back on a jump, and it took me about a year and a half to get back on my feet after that. And so then I decided to come home after that kind of injury.
Yeah.
And I got home and I just fell back in love with New Zealand, Steve, and I just realised what I'd missed about the place. And I was hunting, I was fishing, I was fly fishing. And I had just the most amazing experiences back here, and I decided to start writing about it. And that's pretty much how I got to where I am now. I started writing, and eventually I got offered the position of co-editor.
Now, David, I'm sorry, this is a completely off topic, but that's a very... so did you ever meet Bear Grylls? Similar thing happened to him, didn't it?
Yeah, Bear Grylls was supposed to... He actually came to the team to jump to do some training with us.
Yep.
I was actually in hospital while he was jumping with the team, so I got to miss that one, so I didn't get to meet him. But we did get a lot of celebrities and the like coming around. But yeah, very similar story actually.
Yeah, sorry to sort of go off on that tangent, but anyway, now you're co-editor of NZ Outdoors magazine. Tell me a little bit about the magazine, and if people were to purchase it, what would they find in there?
Sure. I think I started writing for another magazine, and then I saw a good opportunity to work with some really great people at NZ Outdoor. And I've been reading Outdoor since I was a little kid, and it is the oldest outdoors and hunting magazine in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. So they've actually had a change of owners just recently, and I know the people that have purchased the magazine. And I've worked with them. They're just fantastic people, and I really want to relish the chance to work with them and try and use it as a kind of try and push NZ Outdoor forward. From where it is now, it's already got a pretty good reputation, but there's definitely room to grow. So yeah, that's pretty much what I would like to do as co-editor. The
interesting thing, some people compare theatre of the mind or radio to the magazine thing, and I think the two mediums are actually worlds apart and achieve quite different outcomes. I think radio is very personal, one-on-one, but we tend to be very umbrella looking at issues, where magazines give you an opportunity to really delve in and get deep into issues and topics. Would that be your take on it?
Yeah, I think you are onto something there, and I think when you're looking at a medium like a magazine, what I try to do is present the information in a way where I don't want to lead people in certain ways, and so you can look at the information and make your own conclusions of a sort, or perhaps learn something. But yeah, you're right; they are very different mediums.
And you've got a great editorial team. I had a look on your website. You've got the likes of Gary, Kevin, Connor. I saw these are all people that are very well known in hunting circles around the country.
Yeah, they're a real key to the success of the magazine. Actually, they all bring something different to the team. They all have very different writing styles, but what we want to focus with the magazine is actually the quality of the writing, and it's not always about what I've really tried to impress since I've been co-editor. It's not really about the trophies. It's not about the huge stags. They look great on the cover, don't get me wrong, and when somebody does have a good result, we absolutely want to hear about it. But the everyday hunter just wants to hear about stories, well written, well presented, about places we've all been, either in the South Island or here, places we want to hunt, and just guys having fun out there and enjoying themselves in our outdoors, which we can all relate to. So that's a slight sort of a shift in the paradigm, and our editorial team are all on board with that, and they're just amazing. They're all really great people to work with.
And you've actually nailed it. That's exactly. I was being interviewed for another actually for a newspaper article, and they asked me about what we're trying to achieve here. And it is that hunters are incredible storytellers. They're just not very good at getting their story out there and to the wider public. And I see that your magazine, or what I've read of your magazine now, actually very good at doing that.
Yeah, and what we kind of focus on is the core, the editorial team, and getting that quality of writing out. We still want to hear from everybody else out there, but when we have our core team writing good content, it just lifts the game of the whole magazine, as opposed to other magazines over the years that have a very transient writer base.
Right.
So when you read a good story, you might not hear from that guy for another year until he writes something else. Whereas, once we identify someone who has a kind of a flair and a good writing style, we'd like them to be part of the editorial team or write more consistently.
Now, the issue that you've got out currently, and if you're listening to this in archive, it's the issue that was out around this time of the year, is the safety issue. Special collector's edition, I see. So can you tell us a little bit about what the safety issue was and how it came to be? Because you had a fantastic group of people contribute to that.
It's kind of in response, Steve, to I guess since I've been back 2 years now, and just over the course of the year, you just get bits of information coming through, rescues, people getting shot, close calls, this kind of thing, and I'm not slating any of the other magazines in any way at all, but I just feel like maybe NZ Outdoor in particular could do more to kind of increase hunter education in this sort of area, and that's kind of what the safety issue was born of, because it's not exciting content. It's not the huge stags. It's not what we normally read about. So it's a little bit of a risk. But we think it's got real value to the outdoors community. So we think we've compiled a fantastic edition there, and we hope to do it every year.
It's interesting. I fully hear where you're coming from. I feel when I do shows, particularly that have safety at their core, I see 8,000 hunters rolling their eyes as they see the podcast coming up on their iTunes list. Do you think that's what? I mean, I know that's the risk, but I also feel like hunters are beginning to accept that this is an important issue that they need to focus on a little bit more. And it's funny that the people that think they're safe hunters are often the ones that are getting into trouble. Yeah,
exactly right, Steve. I know exactly what you mean with the rolling eyes thing, and we've tried to present it in as exciting. We've got helicopter rescues. There's a hunter saying how he almost pulled the trigger on another hunter, using his own name. That's so honest. That's just raw. To read those stories are just incredible. So we tried to put it forward in a manner that's it's very readable. But I think you've hit the nail on the head. Hunters, I think, by nature can be not loners, but they're not. I think we're all ambassadors for hunting, basically, whether we like it or not. And how we behave out there reflects on all of us. So when we have negative press, like an accident or somebody getting rescued or so on, which can happen to anyone, but the press is usually very negative. And I think if we can just help that in some way, the outcomes will be a lot better for hunting in the future.
I also find that hunters seem to simplify safety issues. And I know it is simple, identify your target and all that kind of thing, and I've actually seen on forums where guys have been talking about safety issues and products that may help with safety, and they've just basically wiped them aside and said, identify your target. Clearly that message is getting through, but I suspect it isn't working.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I take a slightly different tact when I look at it. And I don't like to point the finger and say, this guy's an idiot. And there is human error involved in any process. Yeah, you do. I know. But if you've ever had your brain trick you into thinking something before, then you are in the same category as people who have pulled the trigger on other hunters. I know it's shocking. I know it's just the most awful thing to contemplate. But I just think if you go out there and you think this could never happen to me, then you're making a massive, massive mistake.
Absolutely.
And I think that's not the whole picture, but there's a small kernel of truth in there for all of us, I think.
Oh, you've nailed it. You're absolutely right. It's those hunters that keep saying, this couldn't happen to me. It wouldn't happen to me. I identify my target. I use open sights is another one that I've heard. We've all seen that log we thought was a deer.
Exactly right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I just on this last trip I had into the Ahimana was I got back yesterday and one of the guys stalked a kaka for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
The thing was sitting in a tree mucking around with it and rattling the branches and so on.
Now, we're obviously not just focusing on firearm safety, or you're not just focusing on firearm safety. There's articles about PLBs, there's, like you said, other rescues, and other bits and pieces that they can use to assist with that.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got the PLBs is a big one. And, you still hear of people that just haven't cottoned on to how big a bonus these things are out in the wild. It's a very simple thing. We've also got hypothermia. We've got 33 tips on sort of being safe in the outdoors. We tried to make them as it sounds kind of boring, but we've tried to make it as good as what we can. I think even experienced hunters could read that and get some information in that they'll find valuable.
Do you think, and you just talked about that, even experienced hunters could, if you play a sport, if you were a rugby player, you'd probably go over the same things over and over again, or you'd practice learning new things, or never assume that you've got to the pinnacle of your sport. For some reason, I think some hunters have a different attitude.
Are you sort of relating to the fact where the training could help us?
Yeah, I'm by no means the most experienced hunter in the world, but I hear guys that have been hunting for 50 years say that this wouldn't be any help to them, and I disagree.
Yeah, absolutely right. I actually make the point in one of the articles that in any other sport, you train. You train. If you want the best outcome, if you want to be successful, you've got to put the processes in place in your mind. And when it comes to things like identify your target, everybody's just like, well, you just do it. But there's no training in place. And I put forward in my article that just a simple training method you could use, something I've used in the military. And all it requires is instead of going to the range and shooting a normal sort of a competition shoot, with a circular target with the ring being 10 and so on, you can actually mix it up and have targets where the person has to identify which target to shoot. They have to stop, think, decide what they're going to shoot before they pull the trigger every single shot. And it's not going to cost a lot of money. You just have to have obviously a variety of targets. Yep. It's going to put in place in the mind a process where every time you pull the trigger, it's not just a marksmanship thing. It's an actual thought process.
Interesting. I actually talked to a person who used to run a course very similar to that, and they said they had a silhouette of a possum up on a tree, and then behind that was a person. And he had some of the most experienced hunters shoot through that possum straight into another guy.
That is perfect. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's a technique law enforcement and military have used to train for decades now.
Yeah,
and it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, can you give us a bit of a hint? Give us half a dozen, or if you want to, of those safety tips. A brief overview of those safety tips that we might see in there.
Sure, absolutely. Right.
I can hear you thumbing through the magazine.
Sure. Put it here, exactly. Let me get that open. Excuse me. There is the magazine.
Awkward silence on a radio interview. I love it.
It is, yeah. Could you play some music or something, Steve? I don't know.
I could hum a tune, maybe? I don't know.
Exactly, yeah. I don't know.
This is where you'd go to an ad break if there was any.
It could be a perfect ad break slot, for sure. Okay, so here we have our tips. Okay, so we have a little section on tourniquets.
Really?
And our first aid tips. So
that's a really interesting one, the old tourniquets, because
it's such an easy, lightweight piece of kit. It can be a belt, but if you identify, put the warning in there, and obviously things like this, we've had a medical line as well. Make sure we haven't gone wrong. But I think the key thing to remember is if it's an arterial bleed or if it's a very, very heavy bleed, you really have to weigh up which is the worst threat is the key here. So you are cutting off blood supply to that limb, which isn't good. But if releasing the tourniquet is going to actually cause the patient to bleed out, then it's going to be a balancing act. And so I recommended a first aid course there for everyone to do as well, just to get their heads around it and to do their own research as well. But
a couple of other tips you've got there.
Yep, and so I've got a range of just drugs that you can keep in your first aid kit.
Right.
Imodium, which acts sort of like a cork if you are, if you have a runny bum, I guess you call it. And so out there, and you think about it in terms in summer.
Yeah.
If you do have diarrhea and you're up in the hills, it can be you are losing a lot of nutrients and a lot of fluids.
Mm.
So if you just had some Imodium or something similar, that could go a long way to make you a lot more comfortable.
I'm involved with civil defence rescue, and I remember being on an exercise, and about halfway through, I had a very similar problem, and how quickly my energy levels just plummeted, and clearly becoming dehydrated. Exactly.
And so that's where that would help. And you hit the nail on the head there as well. That people don't realise how draining it is to have something like that, but still
literally
having to be physical. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You still have to produce the goods when you're out hunting. It's pretty tough. Firearm safety. We've got quite a lot of tips here. Let's have a look. Okay, Tim Stewart, a fantastic writer we have, has said, during the roar there are just as many hunters stalking as stags in the forest of New Zealand. Even though you may be stalking in on a roaring stag, keep in the back of your mind that on public land there is a real chance that someone else may be coming in on the same animal. And the roar is obviously quite a contentious time for hunters and hunting accidents, and that's usually where we'll see. I think that's quite a relevant little tip there. And another one on firearm safety. There are pronounced times when ensuring you are carrying a safe firearm is crucial. Be on your guard anytime there is adrenaline flowing, like after a successful hunt.
Yep. Or
during a tense stalk. Similarly, in a situation you have been in many times, like when you are unloading a rifle in safe surroundings for the millionth time.
Yep.
So that's also, the adrenaline is also can be a problem, but also complacency is a problem as well. You're back at the truck, you're just doing the same thing you've always done, and you've worked the bolt, and if you've forgotten to take the magazine off. You've just chambered around, and then if you release the action, that can be.
Well, I know
that happens quite a lot.
I know a prominent hunter, and I'm not going to name and shame him, but accidentally shot a hole through his TV while cleaning one of his firearms.
Oh wow! You've got to name him, Steve. Come on.
No, I won't name him because I actually, I'll put it this way: he will be a future interview. Oh.
That's fantastic.
and I bet you he won't mention it in the interview either.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh, that's funny. Oh, wow, that's incredible. Well, hopefully he was only watching something like Coronation Street and it wasn't the crucial rugby match on.
Do you know, I really hope it was one of those horrible talent shows, like I won't name them, one of those stupid shows where people with no talent that can't get a job go, I'll stop ranting.
That's right. And it's with the sob story.
Yeah.
They never learn to read, and this means so much to them. This is all I want. Okay,
yep. So, a couple more tips, and then we'll move on to your hunting story.
Sure. A bit on weather management here, and okay, here's one on bushcraft. Helicopter search and rescue pilots flying at night will be using night vision goggles. Carrying a torch or an infrared lens filter for your torch will hugely aid your chances of being seen at night, especially if the torch has a blink or a flash function.
Okay.
Lloyd Matheson, a very experienced search and rescue winch operator, has some excellent tips and experience to pass on in his article in the safety issue.
Fantastic. One more.
I'll go back to firearms safety here. And okay, be brutally honest about the state of your vision. A contributing factor in several shooting incidents has been the fact that the shooter or hunter's eyesight has deteriorated. This will affect the hunter not only in good conditions, but especially where weather like rain, drizzle, or poor light decreases your ability to see. If you need glasses or contacts to drive, then you also need them to identify targets.
Oh, good point. And I wear glasses, so I feel their pain. Now you're obviously an accomplished hunter yourself, and we always ask this question of hunters: give us a good story, one of those great hunting moments that you've had.
Oh, a good story, or well, I'll tell you about a contentious story. Yeah. Let me send this out to other hunters out there who might be thinking about writing stories. Be careful about what you write about your own family. Ooh. I mean, my dad talked to me for about 3 days after I wrote a story about an amazing trip we had, but he'd bought some brand new boots and he hadn't worn them in. And these things were awful. Obviously, again, I'm not going to name names or brands, but they literally squeaked every time he walked, every single step.
Oh, I might know which ones they are.
I was in tears. I was around the whole area. I was just laughing so much listening to that sneak. You sound like Bobo the clown trying to stalk a deer. And I put that in the article. And it's Dad. I'm lucky to be still hunting with him. Actually,
he was not happy. Actually, Mrs. Spargo sometimes feel the same way about me mentioning her on this show.
Yeah, spouses get a bit of a hard time when you're comedians. They dine out on their partners as well, don't they?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Now, if people want to find the magazine or want to find out more about it, they can find it in all good bookshops. That sounds like a real wanky line. But, yep. And you've got a great website, nzoutdoor.co.nz, and you can subscribe to the magazine on there.
Yep, you absolutely can. Yep. That's great. We've got pretty competitive prices, and if you're not even looking at getting the safety issue, just look to the future, because I'm not going to change what makes the magazine great, and I'm not going to change anything as much as far as turning away our loyal fans. We're not going to do that. However, I am going to try and mix things up a little bit.
Right.
We're hoping to improve year upon year.
And look, it's $49 for 1 year. Was it $95 for 2 years and $220 for a 5-year subscription?
Yep.
For really valuable information. In this case, could save your life.
Yes, that's exactly why I wanted to speak to you, just to let people know that the information in this last edition, we're really proud of it, and we think it can save lives. And if I just let it go without doing any promotion at all, I think I'd be doing the magazine and everybody out there a disservice.
So I challenge all of our roughly 8,000 listeners we get every week to go out, have a look at buying this magazine. Look, if you don't buy it and you see it around somewhere in a waiting room, make sure you have a look, because if it saves a life, everyone's going to be better off for it. Thank you so much for your time, Steve.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Sorry I asked you awkward questions at times when we didn't have the magazine open and we had some silence, but that's okay. And look, we're going to give away a subscription to the magazine. If you're listening to this months down the track and archive, unfortunately, you're probably out of luck. But if you do want to find out how you could win that magazine, check out our Facebook page. You can find a link to that on our website, www.thehuntingshow.co.nz, and maybe NZ Outdoor will put a link to it on theirs as well.
We will.
Yeah, fantastic. And remember, you can win other prizes with The Hunting Show. All you need to do is go to our website, www.thehuntingshow.co.nz, and have a look on there. Generally, we're giving something away, so if you're listening to this in archive, there's generally give or take something to win. And also our Facebook page. And easy to find, facebook.com/The Hunting Show, or just Google us and you will find it. Guys, be safe and good hunting.
Broadcasting from an undisclosed location. from a secret hunting spot known only to him, and the guy who told him about it, and possibly the guy who told the guy who told him. It's a show all about hunting in New Zealand and around the globe. This is The Hunting Show. Find The Hunting Show on Facebook and Twitter for up-to-date information.